This is a perfect time to be alone. Kids distracted, wifey on the phone. Slip out the back door with my car keys. If I don't leave now, someone will try and find me. It's different. This time right now, solo. I have the perfect plan. Nowhere to go. Cruising down the highway, not doing more than 70.
Welcome to the If You Cook Out Clean podcast. Today we have a very, very special guest with us. I am elated to have him on the show. He is a dedicated husband, a father, a minister. He's an entrepreneur. He's also a podcast host. He's the co-founder and CFO of Urban Express Transportation Incorporated, Urban Express Kids Incorporated, and creator of the podcast Gen X Has Something to Say. So you guys check that out. We'll have a description below at the end of this episode. He holds a bachelor's degree in computer science from the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, a master's degree in divinity from the Samuel DeWitt Proctor School of Theology at Virginia Union University. He's also a first-generation entrepreneur. He works in the Christian community. He serves as the launching pad for his ongoing quest to profoundly encourage the community, realizing the need for expanded health and wellness education among African American men. He became a certified group fitness instructor. He conducted classes across the Charlotte metropolitan area after 13 years, adding a unique style to traditional group exercise that has become a model for today's group exercise instructors. He provides financial contributions to Harvey B. Gantt Center for continued educational programming, exhibitions, and community initiatives geared towards exposing young, underprivileged youth to arts and cultures. His most recent endeavor is to impact his community is his podcast show, Gen X Has Something to Say. His podcast provides a generational perspective through a unique lens rarely shared in today's social commentary. Guys, welcome Mr. Thomas Payne. He's also a proud member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated as well. Welcome, sir. Was that okay? Was that a decent introduction?
That was a great introduction for a humble person as myself. So that works for me, man. Appreciate you having me here. Glad to be a part of this podcast launch, man. I'm so excited for you. Can't wait for the movie to come out.
Absolutely, I appreciate it, and obviously, you know, we're neighbors, so you'll have privileges to be able to see the first movie as soon as it comes out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, Dog, you read the book, correct?
Absolutely.
Good. So, you're the first male guest that we have on the show.
Oh,
so
that should be fun.
it's cool. It's cool. We're gonna keep it kosher, man, and just give the male's perspective. But
Absolutely.
we'll have a little fun with it. So, overall, what was your take on the book?
I think it's an excellent book. Very, very succinct and to the point, and definitely is if a woman is looking for a quick insight to what we're thinking in a perspective, that is a great book or tool for them to use to really get an insight on us, because the barbershop indeed is the place where it serves as our couch. So bunch of guys getting together, we're going to come from all experiences, all endeavors, and we're going to give you the rawest type of emotion and feel of what we're thinking. That's going to be the one place you'll get that, and you'll capture that well in that book.
That's great. I appreciate it. So let's dive right into it, Dog.
Right.
So there's a chapter called Forget Me Not.
Yep.
In that book, and it's a collaboration, not a collaboration, but a collection of stories from men who at some point in time, either in their marriage or relationship, they feel like their significant other, their girlfriend or their wife kind of, forgot who they were. There are stories in there who talk about women who they're being very disrespectful to them because, when you're married, things change.
Absolutely.
We had a guest on this week who talked about, it's not always 50-50. Sometimes it may be 70-30, sometimes it may be 80-20, so on and so forth, and you have to make adjustments accordingly. But I think for men, we're very prideful when it comes to us being able to provide for our families. So when things may take a turn, and depending on your circumstances and situation, it will. But sometimes there are women who, may look at us, and I'm including myself in this conversation because I've lived long enough to, go through life. And they may look at us a little bit differently in terms of maybe how they respect us. So I guess my first question is, what is your take on women who do everything for their spouse, like cook, clean, wash clothes, etc.?
Great question. Just in light of how you set that question up, I think a lot of the disrespect, I'm gonna walk my way into the answer.
Yeah.
So a lot of the disrespect or the resentment or the disrespect comes from the diminishing of women who operate that way, where they do all the cooking and the cleaning, they do all the household chores with no help, they take care of the kids, all of those things, and it is diminished in sense of that when we come home, we just want to have a beer, cigar, or some scotch. We just want to sit down and be left alone while they still been pumping around doing all these things, as well as they have their own career as well, and they're doing all those things, and that builds for that type of resentment to where we get in a position where we don't understand why we're being disrespected. It's because that spouse is feeling unseen. So I say all that to say, if you are that type of woman, or you are a man that desires that type of woman, you also will have to start in this age being sensitive to their second job, which is that cooking, cleaning, taking care of. It's a whole another career in itself, to be a homemaker, to be a child nurturer, and all those things. So if you are desiring that type of person, then you have to be cognizant and sensitive to your woman who's operating in that space. So even though there may be women out here who say, I'm looking for that type of lifestyle, I want to be that kept woman, or all I have to do is these things, at some point the desire in the person himself will rear itself, and that's where the disrespect and the resentment comes from, because they look back 20-30 years later and they have nothing to show for their life at that point, and then your resentment starts to build.
Okay, that's fair enough. So is it good or bad for a woman to be submissive to her husband?
I can't say it's good or bad. It's bad if you are leaning yourself into something you don't want to be. So if you want to be a career-minded woman, then you don't want to put yourself in a position where you're being submissive. And second piece of that is your definition of what submissive is. Is submissive for you only in the context of, do I have to do everything my husband or partner says, or is it submissive as far as we have an agreement on how the leadership style of the unit is, of the partnership? So if you are that type of person that you're looking for some type of leadership and direction in some other areas, but you want to be respected for the knowledge that you have, then you have to communicate that clearly, and you have to really define what submissive means to you. So a lot of times we as a society put that submissive is what I say goes, and I don't have any opinion or any influence on how that decision works. Where true leadership in the submission part of is you are taking direction, or you're taking suggestions from everybody that's included or is impacted by the decision that you make. So short answer is it's good. The short answer is good and bad. depends on who you are as a person. If you need to define what submissive means to you, once you define that, then it's good and bad based off of whether you want to submit to it or not.
Sounds good to me. I mean, just to bring a little bit of context to it.
Yeah.
You are a minister as well, so let's look at it from that perspective.
Okay.
And that standpoint of view. If a man is in alignment with God, meaning that he has a personal relationship with God, and he, in terms of priorities, he places God first. He's a leader. He's a provider. He's doing everything in terms of what manhood exhibits. He's doing all of these things. From that standpoint, and I probably didn't provide the best definition, but from a spiritual and from a ministerial perspective, what are your thoughts on that in terms of being submissive?
And that guides a lot of people's definition of what submissive means, because it really rocks off of wife needs to be submissive to their husband as the husband is submissive to God. The issue comes in is the wife's interpretation of, is my husband being submissive to God? That shows itself in him listening to what God is telling him about the attributes and the strengths of the partner that's being submissive to him. So if he is truly embodying, I am being submissive to God, me as the man, being submissive to God, and I am listening to what God is telling me and how to lead my family, then I am very cognizant of what the strengths of the person that is being submissive to me is. Being that if my wife is an accountant and I'm not that good at money, then God is going to tell me that I need to lean on her about how to operate in our finances. Oftentimes what happens is because I'm quote unquote listening to God and I am the head of the household, so she needs to do what I say, then she gives me instruction and I dismiss the instruction because I need it to go a different way. And where women have the problem in the submission is you are not really following God, because God does not, the Holy Spirit is not stupid. If I am not good at money, the Holy Spirit is not going to tell me to do something with money when he knows I'm stupid with money. So he put somebody in there that is good with money that I can listen to, take direction from her, go back to God, and then y'all tell each other where to go with it. So the submission thing depends on if you fully bow out or flesh out what it truly means to be submissive. Being that we as leaders, are we truly going to the Spirit of God and we're using what the Holy Spirit is telling us to do and how to lead our family? If we do that, then most women will not have a problem with submitting to our husband or our mate.
Okay, sounds good to me. So that leads me to my next question. There's a chapter in the book called Holding Me Hostage. Are you familiar with that?
Familiar.
Chapter? So let me ask you a question, because I think this is very important for our audience to, be able to indulge in and
Okay.
just to get a different opinion. Is it okay for a woman to withhold sex? And I have a follow-up question as well.
Short and quick answer to that is no.
Okay. So let's get all perspectives. Let's get the spiritual perspective as well as your personal perspective, and you are a man, so a man's perspective as well. Can we get all three of those? So from a spiritual perspective, and maybe I'm not framing the question correctly, but from a biblical perspective, maybe.
Well, we don't even necessarily have to put it in a biblical perspective. Just say human need.
Okay.
So the human need and nature of a man is that sexual contact.
Okay.
That is the place where or the action, I won't say the place, that is the action that helps us move forward in all things. That is the place, that is the safe of our the release of our frustrations. That is the release of our joy, pain, any emotional or whatever we go through. Sex is that common thing that allows us to move forward. Beside what the Bible says, beside what society says we are supposed to operate and view sex. It is for the male. And I can only give you from my perspective, that is that one place where we need that as a function and a part of our lives to really move the way that we are encouraged to move. I think I covered one piece of that.
Okay.
What was the other two? Because I want to make sure I'm clear.
No, that's fine, because you pretty much covered all bases, because the first question was from, I guess, a biblical standpoint, but you clarified that because you said, let's just talk about from a human perspective.
Right.
So you clarified that, so that's fine. And I asked you also, from a man's perspective, in which you gave me as well. So I mean, you pretty much covered all bases for the most part, I would say. Thinking of something?
Yeah, because I'm thinking of biblically. Mm-hmm. It's in really, you're only supposed to be having sex to procreate.
Right.
If we're only doing that to procreate, then we have too many people on this earth. We
Okay.
would have.
Okay.
So we would have too many people, and that's just my own interpretation. It's not, you're not going to find that anywhere in the Bible that we're going to have too many people and things like that. But it's given to us to be pleasurable. So it is a pleasurable act for us. And I think the way we framed it biblically, we have removed the woman's pleasure from it. She's just supposed to be this instrument, and where we go smash and dash on that package, which is unfair. Withholding it, unfortunately, because the way society has framed it, it has become the tool in which women can use to get what they want. So withholding it is designed to move the man's needle to get whatever desire that she has. Outside of, if you are in tune in partnerships, you know there may be times where you want it and she just too tired to give it to you. We have to be sensitive that is not the case. It's not, babe, I ain't got it for you tonight. As opposed to, I ain't giving you none because I asked you to do this and you didn't do that. So I'm going to manipulate this one thing that you really want. What really helps you, because at the end of the day it becomes, if you don't get it enough, then your whole wiring starts to get messed up. That's just from a man's perspective.
Okay. With that being said, right?
Mm-hmm.
When men cheat, do you think it's just the act, or are emotions involved?
Not to split hairs too far, it depends on the type of man that person is at that particular state. If he is an immature man and he's just had a lifestyle of just a bunch of smash and dash packages, then it's just the act. You just a person that has trouble controlling their own, struggle controlling themselves. For a man who's been committed and he finds himself in a position where he's unfaithful, there is a bit of an emotional attachment to it, because for him to, even if he's been a person that's been on right, there's something that is missing from his relationship that the other person has pulled him into, and sex came out of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
it's society has a say, all men cheat because it's just a physical act. I just needed to get one off. My wife ain't giving me none. My partner ain't giving me none. So I'm just going to go out here and get the first thing smoking. As we have evolved as men, it has become more than just, I'm just laying on top of on Celie. It's more of the way she's treated me as a person.
I hope ain't no man laying on top of no woman named Because Celie
Man, run with the joke. Run with the color purple joke.
Like she big.
run with the color purple joke.
So we might have to edit that out, but we'll keep Celie in just for sake.
Run with the color purple joke.
That's fine.
Run with the color purple joke.
I got you. Okay, I got you.
So in the sense of that, there's something that we are missing that comes along with that, because for a lot of us, it wasn't just the sex, it was the way that the woman enticed us to sex, or whatever appeal that she had about her, which drove us to want to be with her, because we don't want to be with everybody.
Right.
So it's something about her that drew us to her to make us want to have sex with them. And if you are missing that from home, then that other person is going to have that same type of attraction that pulls you to. It's not just the first set of hips I see I'm got to go after. It's got to be something about that person that draws you to them, that pulls you out of your self-control.
Okay. So with that being said, do you think it's okay to exit and we're gonna say marriage, right? Because this is what we're discussing. Do you think it's okay to exit a marriage because a wife is withholding sex?
Well, it's one of the three that pulls you out. That people do the three things that pulls you out of a marriage: blood and sex, and what's the third one? Infidelity, I believe. No, sex. No. It's sex.
Those
money.
are the two top.
Right, but it's a third one. The third one is escaping me right now.
Okay.
It's a third one.
Okay.
It's a third one.
It'll come back to me.
It'll come back to me. Yeah. So, but those are the two. I would say, after all communication if every effort has been made to right that part of the ship, there's no other recourse, then maybe. Because our relationship should really only be sitting on whether I'm having sex with you. At some point, there's got to be some evolution in our relationship where sex is not the only thing holding it together.
Yeah, for us, when we get old and, we potentially start...
Even before old, because at some point, we not going to be working no more, but her still works. How is it for her?
You can speak for yourself, bro. I don't ever intend on stop.
That's when they knew David was about to die in the Bible.
Okay,
he couldn't get it up for the concubine.
That's fine. I'm not familiar with that passage of scripture. I don't lean on that, dog. But I appreciate your insight. But I don't even want to read that scripture. So with
that's when they knew David was gonna die.
Okay. So with that being said, like when men cheat, I'm sorry, I messed that up. Is it the same for a woman, right? In terms of exiting a marriage, like the same reason that you just gave for a man to exit a relationship or a marriage, does that same statement hold true for a woman? And why or why doesn't it?
I'm gonna say in part because the emotional attachment is going to be deeper for women to pull her out based off of that. It's not going to be just the sex. It's going to be the listening, the paying attention to all the things that she wasn't getting from you, per se, using that as an example. Whoever this person is, they've spent enough time together where it ain't just the look of greener grass. The grass is greener and healthier, as opposed to if I work on this grass, but I still can't get all the weeds out. The most important weeds I can't get out. But this grass is being watered and this soil is turning out to be a whole lot better soil than this soil.
Okay. I mean, I get what you're saying. So earlier, we had a guest who talked about why women cheat, right? So one of the things that she mentioned was, and I may be veering off a little bit, but one of the things she mentioned was women are attention seekers. So if they aren't necessarily getting that attention from home, they'll seek it elsewhere, whether it be the grocery store, whether it be church, whether it be a workplace, anywhere. They will seek for that attention. And it's not necessarily always the case that they're not getting it from home. Sometimes, and this is coming from a female, sometimes it's because they've had some trauma, some past trauma, and she named a list of things that could, be contributing to a woman, potentially cheating. So I guess my question is from a male's perspective, this is a good one. Mm-hmm. When a woman cheats, is that a deal breaker? Not necessarily for you. I'm just saying in general for men, because I can tell you, based on the conversations that I've had, it's not always a deal breaker.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. It's not always a deal breaker.
It's harder for men.
It's absolutely harder for men.
It's harder for men because it's like, we hold them to such a high regard. You know what I mean?
The best way I can describe it is the scene from The Best Man, the first one.
Okay.
When he found out Harper slept with his girl. And he was standing at the altar and they were going through the vows. And he had this vision of his best man sleeping with his girl. Mm-hmm. That is us. That's what we see when we find out our woman has been unfaithful. Mm-hmm. That's we will, even we've never seen it, we never walked into it, we will carry that. We can't unsee that, even though we've never seen it. We will draw that vision in our head and we will always have it there. And it takes hella therapy.
That was going to be my next question.
Yeah.
How does someone or a couple overcome something like that, whether it be one way or the other? But for the sake of this conversation, we're going to talk about the female. How does a man get over something like that?
Couples therapy and individual therapy.
Okay. Can you expand on that just a little bit more?
Well, all of us come from trauma. One way or another, there is some trauma in our lives that has been passed through us, that we can DNA that back to us being put on that boat and brought over here. Right. So that has branched out so much that we really don't know where our trauma begins at. So individually, we have to deal with whatever trauma to make ourselves whole. Then as a whole person, we can then work on the partnership with the person, because that in itself is a relationship, is part of a trauma in itself. And we have introduced a trauma that has triggered whatever trauma from both of us that if it has not been dealt with, it makes that healing process even harder. So it takes a combination of that. You just can't have the couples therapy and think that's going to fix it completely if we don't have any type of individual therapy to get whatever it is we got going on to be able to handle something like that coming into us. Because why did we happen? Why did it happen to me? We're going to do all the self-assessment of ourselves. And why am I having an issue with that? I need my personal therapy in order to handle that piece before I can even really, really grasp and deal with a partner who has been unfaithful to.
Right. So that leads me to another point. So we've all experienced it at some point in time in our life. Mm-hmm. There's a chapter in the book called "Why Do Bad Guys Have All the Fun?" Right. So a couple of things. Why do you think, and I may not be framing this the correct way, but why do you think some good guys turn bad? And why do you think women are attracted to bad guys? Whichever one you want to answer first. And I've asked probably mostly all of the guests so far that same question. What are your thoughts on that? And I can give more context to it if you would like before you.
Because it can go so many different ways. Give a little bit more context to that.
So we had a guest on previously who said, well, a lot of women are, attracted to, and I may be taking it out of context to some degree, but a lot of women are just naturally attracted to the bad guy because they feel like they can tame him, or they can change him. So it's more like a thrill for them, and they, and it was broken down a little bit more than that, and she gave a whole lot more context than I can give, but it was more so like, they see this guy, and for whatever reason they're attracted to him, but they believe in their heart they can change that guy. So that's the bad boy part of it. But the other question is, why do you think some good guys eventually, and I'm not saying they turn completely into this bad guy, but why do you think sometimes they feel like it's not worth them always, doing the right thing, because that girl that they were, seeking, or that girl they was chasing, ends up going after someone who is quote unquote the bad guy or the bad boy?
So, and I don't know if, and it just really dawned on me as I was processing your question. It's the two P's for women, right? And it's some other stuff in there, is provision and protection. And I'm gonna stay with the first one of protection. Bad boys give this sense of protection that a good guy is not necessarily gonna give. It's that rough and tough bravado. That is, if I'm walking down the street and some guy come at me left, the bad guy is gonna be about that action, as opposed to the good guy is gonna be more so of, let's just keep going, I don't want to start nothing. And that whole image that the bad boy exudes, if you break all of that down, is provision and protection. Nobody's gonna fuck with me. Nobody bothers me. I get ultra respect. So as a woman, I know when I'm with that person, I'm protected. The nice guy is the one that ain't getting into all of that. He has the wherewithal to, I see some stuff popping off, I know how to maneuver away from that. The misconception of that is that you assume, because the good guy seeks to avoid first, is that if he gets down to it, he can handle himself. But his first inkling is to avoid the situation until I can't avoid it anymore. Another piece of that is the excitement. There's an excitement of, this dude might choke the shit out of me if I get too reckless with him. Whereas a nice guy might be a communicator. The rough and rumble tough guy, he might slam up against his wall. He probably will never hit me, but it's just the thought of, if I push him too far.
The wall sounds worse to me.
It is worse. I might choke you. I might put you up against the wall.
Okay.
The excitement of being able to handle me when I get too far left is enough to pull you to them. In the long run, when they get older, as most nice guys, and I include myself as a nice guy, after the rough and rumble tough, the lady gets older and she realizes that lifestyle I don't necessarily want, that ain't as safe as I thought it would be. Then I fall back to the nice guy. So the flip side of that is, for, as you asked about the nice guy developing bad habits. I won't say turn bad. He just develops bad habits, because at the end of the day, all men are hunters. And you're going to find a way to hunt the people that you want to hunt. So if that means I got to take on a bravado that's not necessarily me in order to get the person I want, I'm going to take on that bravado until I am self-confident in who I am. I ain't about that life, ain't about that like I'm about that life. You either get with me or you don't. So that's kind of my answer. Like with the source of my answer is it's the protection provision aspect that women look for, and for that bad boy piece, it's the protection that singles out of everything. Now the super bad boy, the one that's moving the yayo and all that, yeah, he has the provision piece until it eventually catches up to him.
Okay, moving the yayo. Can you expand on that just a little bit?
Yeah.
I'm just messing with you. I just some of the things that you're saying, I just wouldn't expect you to say, but it's good though. It's good.
You never know. You never know where people come from.
You definitely never know. But so my take may be just a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
And I do agree with everything that you said, but I think, some guys, they do turn bad because, it seems that it works in their favor. You know what I mean? Because I think at some point in time you realize, just like you said, from a hunting standpoint of view, you realize this is what I can become to be able to attract a certain kind of female.
Exactly.
And if you remember, things repeat itself, but if you remember back in the days, right, when let's use high school as an example, that probably the finest girl in school, right, they weren't going after that nerd.
Absolutely not.
You know what I'm saying? They weren't going after that nerd. They was going after that guy who was a little bit edgy, who kind of maybe stayed in some trouble. I'm not going to say the streets or, prison or jail or any of that stuff. But back in high school, I remember some of the baddest chicks, right? They were going after like these drug dealers, these individuals who were very rough around the edges and carried this, kind of bravado around them. And in my mind, I'm thinking, why, would a woman want to even deal with somebody like that? Knowing what the potential, and you broke it down, but knowing what some of the potential consequences could be. Mm-hmm. So we get these images in our head like early on, right? And when we experience or go through, or get involved with our own relationships with women, we see like how they respond to, and I'm going to call myself a nice guy, but not quite. I identify as a bad boy occasionally, but sometimes, like when we're in these relationships, we see like we ain't benefiting from, just being nice all the time, because at some point in time they're gonna look at you and they're gonna say, you know what, he's soft, or they may start trying to put labels on you that may not necessarily be true to test your manhood. But and some women love doing that just to try to get a reaction out of you. So I see how, based on just my own personal experiences, mm-hmm. how you at some point in time realize, you know what, this good boy image ain't really working for me. Let me kind of change it up just a little bit, just so I can get a different outcome. Mm-hmm. You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And to add to that, we have to consider, especially in high school and college, we are coming into our own, and for lack of a better way to communicate it, we think we know as much as our parents. So whatever our parents is telling us about who we should and should not be around, who we should not date, should or should not date, we are gonna most times do opposite of what it's telling us. Leave that boy alone. That's the one you're going to. Leave that fast-tailed girl alone. That's the one we running straight to. We have that in play because we're coming to our own in high school. That drug dealer, even though for all the reasons you said he is bad, my parents say I shouldn't be with him anyway because they told me not to. You as a nice guy looking at that, I want the fine girl, so I'm going to try to dress like them as much as I can. I'm gonna try to have the look. Even in college, like beepers, and because I came from that beeper era, you wanted a beeper because the drug dealers had a beeper. or you had a cell phone, had to pocket the bag cell phone. You having all these things just so you can carry that image. Everything that we've been saying, carry that image of pulling that, because that gets us the girl that we want or the guy that we want. We are doing those things. Even girls who are nice that are getting passed over, they're wearing more provocative outfits. They're getting into smoking and drinking because those are the type of girls that guys, bad guys or whoever guys are chasing after. It's the same thing. It's the same type of stuff.
Okay. That's a good perspective. I can see how, some guys can turn bad. Because, at some point in time, maturity definitely has to kick in, and you have to be responsible and all these things. But, and also to add to that, I've seen where, some of those situations turn deadly.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like for the female,
Mm-hmm.
Because all of those things you mentioned are true in terms of why they seek these guys out. But I think what they don't understand is there's a certain element of danger, that comes with chasing these bad guys. You can, worst case scenario, you can end up dead, especially if you're in a predicament or a situation where, that guy is in an environment that, is dangerous.
It's roller coaster excitement. If I need that adrenaline rush, like if I'm being with him and something gonna happen, and it does happen and nothing happens, I come out of that scare. If he protects me in that situation or he moves me out of the way, wherever the case may be, it's still that excitement of that guy, the excitement that he brings, as opposed to the nice guy who reads books and he's watching Thundercats for back in our day, or
I
he's
read books,
anime.
dog, but I don't watch Thundercats.
I did both.
Back in the days, I did, but yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So
Okay.
there's an excitement to that, as opposed to we getting into a book and having thought process, sitting out on a balcony and contemplating life and talking about all the mysteries of the world. There's an excitement to I'm standing on the corner, or I'm standing at some club in the VIP section popping bottles and stuff is popping off. There's an excitement to that. And it only comes with maturity, where you start to figure out what it is in life I really want, and you start to find or looking for what your purpose in life is, that you start to shift and figure out what you want better for yourself.
And when does that become too late for a female? The things that you just mentioned. When is it too late?
Depends on what they're looking for, whether it's too late. I don't think it's too late for anybody to come
Mm-hmm.
into a fruition of what I want in my life as purpose. Anything, it's never too late.
It's never too late technically, but I think it's too late in terms of maybe starting a family, reproducing, children, and trying to, establish a relationship with a guy who don't want your ass no more. So I do think it's too late, because typically those kind of women, after a while, when they get used up, I'm not talking about all of them, it's just the truth, man. Let's be honest about it.
Absolutely.
When some of them get used up, they spent a majority of their time chasing the guys who don't want them anyway, but because of all the reasons that you name. And let's put an age limit on it, right? Let's say they're in their 40s now,
Mm-hmm.
right? And all of a sudden they got this new awakening in life, and now they, want to be with the good guy. How many options do you think they truly have at that point? Even if they check all the boxes, meaning that from the exterior to the interior.
So there's where the struggle is, right? So it depends on who's defining what options are. So society and technology and medical advancements has allowed to women to now have children later than before, because at one point in time, if they didn't have a child by the time they were 35, they were washed up. Now you have women having children in their 40s, some in early 50s, having children.
There's a certain element of danger that comes
There,
with that.
there is. There absolutely is, but the option is there.
Okay.
Then at the same time, they are career focused to the same way the guy was. Let me get settled in my career. I've gotten everything where I want, and we go back. That's the other side of the coin, because we as men do the same thing. Those of us that played the field or are still playing the field in their 50s and then 60s, they looking for somebody to settle down with. And in essence, as I heard in another female conversation, you looking for somebody to take care of you now. Now that you've gotten yourself, you done ran, you've been the neighborhood community penis for all these years. Now you want to settle down and have somebody take care of you. It's the same type of coin flip, but it's, as a society, we're getting married later. We're finding partners later. That's the evolution of our society and the evolution of what I'm looking for. And the struggle is us defining what that standard of you're washed up now because of these standards that we put in place to say if you got all these boxes checked. But those boxes no longer fit the evolution of where we are today as men and women. So before it was getting married in your 20s and 30s, now people are getting married in their 40s and 50s. And the way society has also moved, you hard pressed to find anybody in your 40s and 50s that don't have a child already from some previous relationship anywhere. So how do you define washed up when the majority of people you're gonna meet anyway gonna have a kid? And then you add on to that, if you don't have one at that age, then something must be wrong with you, because by now surely you would have had a kid or a relationship that did not work. So that changes the perspective of what's the boxes you now check for your happiness.
Okay. And I agree with everything you said.
Mm-hmm.
And you put it, I mean, you gave a great perspective. To add to that, so a guy, and let's say a good guy, right, who went to school, was career driven, was accomplished in his career, right, and pretty much he's gotten to the place where, you know, he has more options, however you define that to be. Let's say his options are from the age of 30 to 50. Let's say, and not all 30-year-olds may not necessarily have not experienced any kind of trauma, but the possibilities of less trauma exist with, let's just say, someone who has less experience and who has not gone through life. For a let's say a good guy, right, who has unlimited options, why would he ever choose someone that, and I'm not going to use the term washed up, why would he ever choose a woman that has dealt with a lot of trauma and she's been dealing with bad guys the majority of her life versus, and I'm not going to necessarily use age as an example, and I know I started with that,
right.
But let's say someone who has not really dealt with a lot of bad guys, or who probably have never even dated a bad guy. And I know women like that as well. As a person with that range of options, why would he ever choose the one who has faced more trauma in her life, is my question.
First thing that jumps out at me is peace of mind. Somebody closer in your age range, and I would just say as a general age range, like 5 to 7 years, they're junior or senior, because we kind of thinking more like 4 years high school. You might have graduated college, and now was graduating.
We can go to 10, though.
Right. So I'm gonna use a shorter one because 10 years is generational. Peace of mind. And it depends on who you are as a man. Like the question you started us off with about being submissive. the chances of you, if you desire that submissive woman, I got it, all you got to do is sit and look pretty and give it to me when I want, I am going to gravitate towards a young girl because she ain't there. She hasn't developed her own self in a sense. I'm going to gravitate towards her because I don't want that strong woman that's been through some things that's able to match my intellect just the same. If I'm looking for that, if I'm a person where I'm looking for that partner to build this kingdom, and we just ride out in the sunset, she coming with a bag, I'm coming with a bag, we already got our investments rolling, we just gonna partner up, we gonna be in a relationship, we ride that thing out. That's a peace of mind. We both bringing this table and building the kingdom, as opposed to I got it and I'm just bringing somebody else up and setting them straight. Nothing wrong with it. It's just personal preference. It's what you looking for. What is the piece you're looking for, and how do you get to it?
Because we see that quite often.
Absolutely.
Days, especially with men who have a lot of money.
Right.
And I don't want to name any names on this show.
No, you don't have to name no names.
They're like millionaires and billionaires who will date women or marry women like half their age.
Why? But I mean, that's just personal opinion. It's like, why? What are y'all talking about?
Right. And I actually agree with that. Like, I would never, you know what I mean?
So
we don't have anything in common. But let's say there's two women, right? The same age, you know what I mean? Same intellect, same drive.
You said same age?
Same age.
Okay.
Same age, same drive, same intellect, same fabric, whatever that means. Same everything, right? With the exception, one has dealt with bad guys all their life, one has not. Who does a man with unlimited options choose to deal with or be with? Out of those two.
He chooses the one that's a better fit for him.
Okay.
And that takes time. He's not going. If you're saying they both look the same on paper.
They both the same.
They both look the same on paper.
One has tarnished reputation and dealt with a lot of bad boys. One has not. Who does the man with unlimited options choose?
That depends on the strength of who he is to say, I'm going to find out who that person is for myself rather than go off of what's been said about them.
Okay, and after he filters and streamlines.
He does his due diligence and spends his time.
Streamlines all of that.
Yeah.
Who does he choose?
Whichever one makes him the best person he can be.
And that's fine.
And he should be evolved enough to do that, even though everybody's not.
Okay.
In my opinion, he should be evolved enough where if he dates both of them, and whichever one he removes their past, he's meeting the person where they are at today at 2024. Whichever one, based off of whatever reason, whatever one that best fits him is the one he should go for.
Okay. Now, with that being said, and with everything you just said, you can't speak necessarily from a woman's perspective, but let's say this. Does that statement hold true for a woman, or is it a double standard? Because let me finish. So there are women, right? Not mentioning any names on this show, but they date younger men and is celebrated in a lot of instances. Like, especially in our community, they look at it as, especially other women, black women at that, they'll say, you know what, we celebrate you, girl, go girl, or whatever it is that they say, for being able to, you know, still have it going on and still being able to attract someone. I'm not going to say half their age, but we know people in the media and, you know, in the world, and famous folks who they date these younger guys and they're celebrated. You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely. So
is it a double standard with them when it comes to, you know, dealing with certain guys as it is for us? Is it a double standard?
It's a double standard. And it's a piece that's not often fleshed out, and it's on both sides, but they don't treat it. It's in a double standard. It's the maturity level of the younger person. it has always been touted that younger men are not as mature as the women the same age. So from a woman's side of things, dating a younger guy, you are manipulating him because he's not mature enough to pick up on how you play the game. But it's vice versa for the woman, but it's more accepted society-wise. So I went through all that to say the short answer is yes, there's a double standard on it. But it's almost like, why? Because both sides are doing the same thing. You are manipulating somebody whose maturity level is not at yours to play the game the way that you can play the game at your age.
And I agree with that to some degree, because that's not necessarily always the case.
It's not all the cases, yeah.
Because women in general, they mature much quicker than guys do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I wrestle with that. I really wrestle with that. But
it's the truth. I can't say that that's that way.
It's not 100%.
No. We may be exceptions to the rule, but in general, women are they mature much quicker than we do.
And the tough pill to swallow is that a lot of women are getting these younger guys because the sex game ain't the same with the guys in their age range. So you can't ground and pound like you used to in your 20s. In your 50s, your ground and pound is a little different.
You need to speak for yourself, my friend.
I'm saying in general. I'm not talking about myself. We're talking in general.
I know. I'm just messing.
Yeah, I know you are. Yeah, I know you are. But that's a fair case. The same way that we go after younger women because they look better.
Right.
So in reverse for them is, I need this young guy that he ain't got nothing but time and full nuts.
Okay. And like I said, you surprise me every time with some of the things that you're saying, but we celebrate it. So, this is like being in the barbershop, man. We have these conversations,
Absolutely.
All the time, and never to. We don't make anything personal, and that's the thing about guys. We can have conversations and hash these things out and be cool the next day. Women not so much. So let's move on to maybe another topic.
Okay.
And there's a chapter in the book called Third Party Influence.
Mm-hmm.
So there are some stories in the book about women who intentionally try to sabotage their girlfriends' relationships, generally because they're jealous of their relationship, and obviously they have tricks and they do it subtly, where you're not you may not notice, or the girlfriend that they're doing it to may not always be so obvious to them. So this just came to my mind, right? We know that happens with women. Does it happen with men?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely does.
Okay. Expand on it just a little bit. Because I think they need to hear this.
It's not as seen, because I can't find the word I'm looking for. It's not seen the same way. So it's the subtlety of the way he may make a comment about your wife, or the way he talks about you and how you and your wife move. What he may say in the barbershop when you're not in the barbershop.
Now, are you speaking, because the perspective in the book is close friends to that female who is trying to sabotage their relationship. Are you speaking from a close friend's perspective who?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like you saying, does it happen both? It's both ways, right? So, it's conversations he may try to have with your wife when you're not around, or the way he's looking at her. You can tell when he ain't looking at her like sister. He looking at her like, if I got the opportunity, I'm gonna take my shot. I think that that works. Especially, you just gotta be real careful. You have to be really careful. And I do think it works on both sides. It's girls that get third party. You see the guy somewhere, you got something to say, or your guy's out there and he see your girl and they're having a good time, and he's not gonna say outright. He's just gonna be like, "Hey, dog, you might wanna check how she moving with such and such." And whoever that such and such that she rolling with got that reputation. It's the same type of stuff. We just move it differently.
Right.
Or they all got mutual friends. We're only 6 degrees in separation. So it's a close friend of theirs, there's a close friend of theirs, a close friend of theirs, and they've had a conversation. And you circle the conversation back to your friend, or if you want to filter out some doubt, you talk to that person because you know that person's going to circle back. And then that person, because they already in spaces, they going to start whispering, and then here you go. Now I got to sit back, and you're in conversations you're not really supposed to be in, offer information you had no clue where that came from.
Right. And I think respect plays a large role. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
When it comes to relationships, because as a man code, and I'm not saying there are not men out there who are disrespectful. We've seen it. You know what I mean? But I think from and maybe I'm using the wrong terminology, but from a man code's perspective, there are certain things you just don't do.
You just
and
do
there are certain lines that you
do.
never cross. So and I'll give you some context. So there are certain things I would never do, right? If I know, and this is been typically my whole life, if I know that somebody dealt with a woman, right, that I may have been friends with, or even have a mutual friend, right, I'm not dealing with them on a certain level. Right. That's just me. You know what I mean? Because it's just too many women out here to, and I'm not saying it doesn't happen, because sometimes you may find yourself, in a relationship with a woman, and you may find out later that she may have dealt with somebody, you know what I'm saying, in your past, or someone, maybe even in your present, that you know. How do you deal with that situation? You know what I'm saying? But as a rule of thumb, like, I'm not saying all, but a lot of the guys that I know, there are certain rules, unwritten rules, that we follow. You don't ever talk to a man's wife. You don't ever talk to a man's girlfriend. And even if, as I mentioned, there's a mutual connection, right, or mutual friendship, you walk away from that. You understand what I'm saying? Typically, like I said, there are exceptions to the rules. You may find out it may be too late. You may have already fallen in love with this woman, or you guys.
Now you saying don't deal as far as you may have had a dealing with them in another space, and then they're dating one of your friends. So I'm trying to pull this into the full context.
So my rule of thumb has always been, if I know someone, right, even if I don't necessarily know them personally, and we have a mutual friend, and there's a female that they may have dealt with in the past, if I know this off the gate, I'm not even going to entertain that situation.
I see.
That's what I'm saying.
You're saying down the line, if I come across her, she's dating any one of my boys, then she's out.
For the most part, yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. And I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, because it happens to the best of us. You know what I'm saying? But in terms of having an unwritten rule that most men follow, that's the unwritten rule, dog.
Absolutely.
Like life happens, and you find yourself in certain circumstances, but I'm not going to try to holler at or talk to my best friend's girl.
Absolutely.
You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
You know what I mean? Even if, I don't even if it's somebody I just met.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's just too many out here to, put yourself in that kind of predicament. which leads me to, and we'll wrap it up soon, but which leads me to, in the book there was a situation where this guy actually, he killed his wife. He killed his wife because he found out she was cheating. He followed her to some location, whatever. She was meeting up with this dude. He couldn't take it. You know what I'm saying? So he blasted off on the dude. He killed him. So, you know, there's some serious repercussions. You know what I mean? When it comes to playing that game. But if you live long enough, you've dealt with it on some level.
Sex.
And I think ultimately, you do mature to a place where you can practice restraint, because in maybe my immature years, I'm not going to give an age to it necessarily, but in my immature days, I think I would have responded much differently than I would probably respond today if something like that were to happen.
Right.
I have enough, discernment. I have enough information and knowledge to know that if I make this certain turn, this is going to yield me these results. Meaning, I ain't killing nobody. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I ain't not over that. You know what I mean? Because that can be replaced. You know what I mean? Your life cannot be. So that's like, a no-no. You know what I'm saying? And we would think that most men would, live by that rule. But unfortunately, we all don't. You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's that, man. Any more thoughts you want to share?
No, man, this is good. It's good. It's good conversation. Conversation that needs to be had.
Okay.
Need to be fleshed out. Absolutely.
Okay. Any more questions for me, or?
I'm good, dog.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you.
For me, is season 4 of Gen X Has Something to Say. Currently revamping the show, changing a couple of formats and perspectives I kind of want to work on. So, spring 2025, season 4 hit all your podcast channels.
Okay.
So be on the lookout for it.
Okay. Sounds good. We'll definitely support you and all of those endeavors, and hopefully you can return the favor again someday, and we'll have you on maybe more of a panel setting, and we'll have some women here as well. And
we'd love to be a part of that.
Absolutely. So thank you guys for joining us today for the If You Cook, I'll Clean podcast. We will see you soon for the next episode.
See the bright lights, or take a walk in the neighborhood with the big houses on the south side, or do what they do in the movies, watch planes fly to the sky. Don't know what to do with myself, not used to this a long time. Every day, rocking my nerves, so I better go. I need some peace, yeah. Need some peace, alright now, solo. Prevent going crazy, time to myself. So I can be, or do I lose my voice, yeah.